There's a specific moment when you realize you can't keep living the way you've been living. Maybe you're staring at yourself in the mirror and you don't recognize the person looking back. Maybe you're going through the motions of your life and feeling completely numb. Maybe you've said, "I'll change" 100 times before and never followed through. But this time feels different. Not because circumstances changed, because something inside you shifted. A quiet recognition that the person you've been isn't the person you need to become. That transformation isn't just possible, it's necessary. Not for anyone else, for your own survival, for the chance to actually live instead of just existing. And you're standing at the edge of change, terrified and hopeful, knowing that who you are right now is about to dissolve into who you're trying to become. Maybe you're in that moment right now, that space between who you were and who you're becoming, where the old patterns don't work anymore, but the new ones haven't fully formed, where you're not the person you used to be, but you're not yet the person you're trying to become. And it feels impossible, like trying to rebuild a house while you're still living in it, like trying to change everything while life keeps demanding you stay the same. You're fighting years of conditioning, decades of patterns, a lifetime of beliefs about who you are. And some days, the old you wins. You slip back, you fall into familiar behaviours, and you think you've failed. That transformation is for other people, that you're stuck being this version forever. But you're not. Most people think self-transformation is about willpower, about deciding to change, and then just doing it, about becoming a different person through sheer determination. But psychology tells a more complex and more compassionate story. Real transformation isn't about becoming someone different. It's about becoming more fully yourself. It's not about adding new traits. It's about removing the layers of conditioning, trauma, and false beliefs that have been covering who you actually are. The person you're trying to become, they're already there, underneath the fear, underneath the patterns, underneath the identity you built to survive circumstances that required you to be small. Transformation isn't creation, it's excavation. You're not building a new self, you're uncovering the real one. Here's the part that makes quick fix people uncomfortable. Transformation doesn't happen through one decision. It happens through 1,000 small decisions. Through choosing differently 100 times a day. Through catching yourself in old patterns and consciously choosing new responses. It's not dramatic. It's not a moment where everything suddenly changes. It's a process, slow, messy, non-linear. You make progress and then you regress. You have breakthrough and then backslide. You think you've changed and then you find yourself doing the exact thing you swore you'd stop doing. That's not failure. That's how change works. Your brain doesn't release old patterns just because you decided they're not serving you. It releases them through repetition, through creating new neural pathways that are stronger than the old ones. And that takes time. Think about who you're trying to become. Is that person kinder, more honest, more brave, more at peace? Whatever traits you're reaching for, understand this. You already have them. They're not foreign. They're dormant, buried under years of learning to be different, years of adapting to environments that punished authenticity, years of becoming what others needed instead of what you actually are. Transformation is permission. Permission to stop performing. Permission to stop protecting. Permission to finally be who you've always been underneath all the armor. And that permission, you don't need to wait for it from anyone else. You can give it to yourself. This process doesn't happen in isolation. It's triggered by pain usually. Not the sudden crisis kind always. Sometimes it's the slow accumulation of realizing that the life you're living doesn't match the life you want. that the person you're being doesn't align with your values, that you're tired, not just physically, existentially, tired of pretending, tired of hiding, tired of living small when you know you're capable of more. That exhaustion? That's not depression. That's your soul demanding change, demanding you stop betraying yourself, demanding you finally become who you actually are instead of who you've been pretending to be. But here's what blocks transformation for most people. Identity. You've built an entire sense of self around being a certain way, around certain patterns, around specific stories about who you are. I'm the anxious one. I'm the people pleaser. I'm the one who struggles with this. And those identities feel safe, even when they're painful, because they're familiar. You know how to be that person. You've practiced being them for years. Becoming someone different means losing that familiar self, means not knowing who you are anymore. And that uncertainty, that's terrifying. So you cling to the old identity even when it's destroying you, because known suffering feels safer than unknown possibility. Here's what researchers discovered. Dr. Bruce Lipton's work on the biology of belief shows that your subconscious is running 95% of your behavior, which means conscious decisions to change are fighting against subconscious programming that's been running since childhood. You can't just think your way into transformation. You have to reprogram through repetition, through creating new experiences that teach your nervous system it's safe to be different, through acting as if you're already the person you're becoming until your brain catches up and realizes you are. We live in a culture that sells instant transformation, books that promise to change your life in 30 days, programs that claim you can become completely different in weeks. And when that doesn't happen, when change is slow and messy and non-linear, you think you're the problem, that you're doing it wrong, that transformation works for everyone else, but not for you. But that's a lie. Real change is slow. Real transformation requires grief. Grief for who you were, grief for the dreams that won't happen, grief for time you feel you wasted being the wrong version of yourself. You have to mourn the old you before the new. You have space to emerge. There's a particular loneliness in transformation, because the people who knew the old you might not recognize the new you. They might resist your change, might try to pull you back into old patterns because your change threatens their comfort. They're used to you being a certain way, playing a certain role, and when you stop playing it, relationships shift. Some relationships deepen, others end. And that loss? That's part of it. You can't become fully yourself while maintaining relationships that require you to be partially yourself. Some people won't make the journey with you, and that's not rejection. That's incompatibility with who you're becoming. Behind every transformation is courage. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The courage to sit with discomfort while new patterns form. The courage to keep choosing differently even when it feels unnatural. The courage to be vulnerable while you're figuring things out. The courage to fail publicly while you're learning. The courage to let people see you changing instead of hiding until you're perfect. Because you'll never be perfect. Transformation isn't about reaching perfection. It's about becoming more real, more honest, more aligned with who you actually are underneath everything you thought you had to be. If you're in the middle of transformation, here's what you need to know. The discomfort is normal. The feeling like you're failing is normal. The regression into old patterns is normal. You're not broken, you're changing. And change is hard because your brain is literally rewiring, creating new neural pathways, building new habits, learning new ways of being. That takes energy. That creates confusion. That makes you feel like you're worse before you're better. But that's not regression. That's the process. Start with awareness. You can't change what you're not aware of. Notice your patterns. Notice when you're acting from the old identity. Notice when fear is running you. Notice when you're choosing the familiar over the growth. Just notice, without judgment. Awareness itself creates change. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And that visibility makes it harder to keep running it unconsciously. Make micro changes. Don't try to transform everything at once. Pick one pattern to work with, one belief to challenge, one new behavior to practice. Master that. Then move to the next. Small changes compound. They build momentum. They create evidence that change is possible. And that evidence, that's what sustains you through the hard parts. Get support. You can't transform in isolation. Find people who are becoming too, who understand the struggle, who won't judge you for the messiness of change. Therapy, community, friends who've done their own work. You need witnesses to your transformation. People who can remind you who you're becoming when you forget. Practice self-compassion. You're going to fail. You're going to slip into old patterns. You're going to have days where you feel like you haven't changed at all. That's not failure. That's being human. Talk to yourself like you talk to someone you love, with kindness, with patience, with recognition that change is hard and you're doing it anyway. There will still be moments when you feel like the old you, when familiar patterns resurface, when you react the way you always have. That's not proof you haven't changed. That's proof you're human. Transformation isn't linear. It's not permanent eradication of old patterns. It's increasing the distance between when pattern gets triggered and when you catch it, between when you act from it and when you choose differently. But there will also come moments when you notice yourself responding differently, when something that would have triggered you doesn't, when you choose growth over comfort, when you're brave, when you used to be afraid, when you're honest, when you used to hide. And in those moments, you'll realize you're not becoming someone new. You're remembering who you always were, before the world taught you to be small, before trauma taught you to be defended, before conditioning taught you to be acceptable. The real you, the one who was always there, just waiting for permission to emerge. And when you give yourself that permission, when you choose transformation, not because you're broken, but because you're ready, that's not just change. That's homecoming, coming home to yourself, to the version that's been waiting underneath. And that's not just transformation, that's liberation.